Members, without objection, we will proceed at this time to file item 64, Senate Joint Resolution 21 by Senator De Leon. Senator De Leon at Senator Steinberg's desk. Mr. Secretary, please read.
Senate Joint Resolution 21 by Senator De Leon relative to the Armenian genocide.
Senator De Leon.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, as well as members. Colleagues, I rise to present Senate Joint Resolution number 21, which designates April 2014 as California Month of Remembrance for the Armenian Genocide of 1915 to 1923. Today, we mark the 99th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide, where more than 1.5 million Armenians lost their lives. Now, the Armenian Genocide was the very first genocide of the 20th century. And immediately thereafter, between 1915 and 1923, we had the genocide of World War II, headed by Adolf Hitler. And consequently, because of that horrific genocide, we also had the genocide of Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge, as well as Rwanda in the mid-1990s. The Hutus versus the Tutsis, or they dehumanize another people by calling them, quote-unquote, cockroaches. And that gave them the empowerment to systematically kill and butcher another people from within the same country. Now, the Armenian Genocide is the very first genocide, obviously, of the 20th century. And 1.5 million individuals, senior citizens, young men, infirmed, children, women, lost their lives. Some of these individuals, men, were conscripted against their will into the Ottoman Empire army in units that were unarmed. But the vast majority of the young men, the infirmed, senior citizens, women and young children, they were deported and forced to flee physically from their homeland. And many of them fled through Syria and other parts of the Middle East, where many of them perished, dehydrated, many of them starved to death, and others were tortured. Again, 1.5 million. And so began the despair throughout the world, where Armenians not just settled in the Middle East, but elsewhere. And many came to the United States of America. Many settled in my area that I currently represent, East Hollywood area, which is known today as Little Armenia. Also, too, we had Armenians who relocated to parts in the Bay Area, San Francisco, as well as Fresno. Many Armenians, upon reaching Fresno County, were met with signs that said, "No Armenians allowed." And this was part of the welcome that many Armenians faced when they came to the United States of America. As you can imagine, the struggle, the Armenian survivors have struggled to establish their roots in the United States of America. And as of today, we still have a government in the other part of the world who have yet to legally recognize the genocide, the systematic genocide of more than 1.5 million individuals. The violence against them was inhumane, but now they would be made to bear a second inhumanity of violence against their memory. This is an issue that we shall never forget. And every day here in the state capitol, we will proclaim the month of April as a day of remembrance of the Armenian genocide. The great state of California will not let their history vanish, and they will not let their demand for justice go unheeded. And I call upon the Congress as well as the President to follow suit. I want to acknowledge the great constituents that we all have in this great legislative body from throughout the state of California who are in the gallery here today, right above us, on the left, right, as well as center. Armenian Americans who have come from all over the state of California. And Armenians have contributed greatly to the rich culture of the state of California. As we all know, one of the greatest Armenians was a former governor of the state of California, Governor George Duke Major. Now, I want to thank also to the ANC, the Armenian National Committee, and to the Armenian Council of America for being here to mark this very special day. Mr. President, as well as members, I respectfully ask for an aye vote on Senate Joint Resolution number 21.
Thank you very much, Senator De Leon. Members, before us is Senate Joint Resolution 21. A number of members request to be heard on this item before we vote. Senator Berryhill, followed by Senator Carolou, followed by Senator Wyland, and Senator Mitchell, and Senator Lara. Senator.
Yes, Mr. President, members. Members, as was just mentioned so eloquently by Senator De Leon, just 99 years ago, 1.5 million men, women, and children were massacred at the hands of the Ottoman Turkish Empire. California has a great fortune of being home to many people of Armenian descent, including former Governor George Deukmejian. In fact, in my district, the city of Fresno is home to one of the largest Armenian communities in the entire United States. The genocide inflicted on the people of Armenia is remembered and relived by my constituents every single day. They mourn for those who were murdered and for those still oppressed today. Today, for the first time in many years, we have the makings of another tragedy for the people of that region. Over the last week's reports have been circulating of violent atrocities by rebels and possible genocide against Americans in Syria. That area of Syria is home to a large Armenian community that is now being forced to flee their homeland for their safety. As we acknowledge and commemorate the 99th anniversary of the Armenian genocide today, we, as a nation, should remember that what was wrong 99 years ago is still wrong today. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Berryhill. Senator Liu.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I also rise in support of SJR 21 and in remembrance of the men, women, and children who suffered and died in the Armenian genocide 99 years ago. And it is my privilege to represent a large Armenian community in the United States in Glendale. Our last century is filled with genocides. Jews, Gypsies, Armenians, Cambodians, the people of Kosovo, Rwanda, and Darfur, and many, many more. It is shameful that the 20th century and now the 21st century history is a history of people ruthlessly murdered and of cultures decimated and displaced. By commemorating the Armenian genocide, we rededicate ourselves to preventing innocents from being persecuted anywhere in the world. And we commit to being examples to others, especially our youth, of how to respect and love one another and truly embrace and appreciate our differences. We hope the lessons of yesterday can help us secure a better tomorrow for everyone. In support of SJR 21.
Thank you, Senator Liu. Senator Wyland, followed by Senator Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is an issue that I've worked on for probably 12 years since I've been in the legislature. I worked with former Assemblyman Paul Koretz on this, and then had a bill of my own which covered actually these same genocides. And that bill said that when students are studying genocide, they needed to see it in the context, not just of the Armenian genocide or the Holocaust, which are best known to us in California, but to hear the actual stories of those who survived these other genocides we're talking about. As a matter of fact, the bill included Cambodia, Rwanda, and Darfur. But there are so many others. There are so many others. It was mentioned that shelling just recently in Syria included a village that was inhabited by Armenians. We see right now the coming, unfortunately, probable dissolution of Iraq based on the conflict between Sunnis and Shias. We went through Bosnia. And this is the 20th anniversary of what happened in Rwanda, where the identification cards of Rwandans said either Hutu or Tutsi, where people literally hacked neighbors with whom they had lived for a long time. Now, the point of these oral histories is for students in high school to really deeply understand emotionally what this meant. And this is the other part we need. What can we and the international community do to prevent this? What can we do? Of course we want people to recognize differences. Of course we want people to be tolerant. But our students need to address, as future citizens, what can we do as a country? Because we must do a lot more, and the international community, to prevent this in the future. So it's interesting, when I presented that bill, the major testimony, in addition to some of from the Armenian community, was from the Turkish community. They're organized. They are absolute deniers. As a matter of fact, their attorney representing them tried to say that by international definition, this unfortunate thing didn't meet the standard of genocide. It did, we know it did, and I think in recognizing this today of the Armenian community, we can form a basis for going forward and dealing with this phenomenon so it doesn't happen anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Weiland. Senator Mitchell, followed by Senator Lara.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I stand as chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus to proudly support and thank you, Senator De Leon, for bringing SJR 21 to the floor today. Colleagues, I'm sure there is no question that we all fully support and recognize the importance of remembering these moments so we can pay respect to the victims, recognize the courage of those survived, and also to remember and learn from our historical failures of the past. There's a debate currently waging in our publicly funded colleges and universities about the perceived value of ethnic studies. And so while we talk about the importance of educating young people about the past and not wanting to, again, make the mistakes of the past, there's one way we can make sure that we fail in that, and that's not guaranteeing that our future leaders, future generations of Californians, don't have an inherent understanding and sensitivity to mistakes of the past. We talk about cultural competency and being and understanding and valuing other peoples of other nations, of other languages, people who look different from us. Well, if it's not taught, if it's not encouraged, if it's not infused in their core learning from K through 12 through higher education, this can all just be talk. And so in that context, I hope that we not only recognize you today and the atrocities that have been referenced by all of my colleagues, but we're mindful of those acts every day as we legislate and make sure that we are instituting policies to encourage the reflection, the remembrance of those past actions. In August of 2011, President Barack Obama signed a presidential directive stating that, and I quote, "Preventing mass atrocities and genocide is a core national security interest and a core moral responsibility of all of the United States." I stand in support of the resolution.
Thank you, Senator Mitchell. Senator Lara, followed by Senator Block, and then Senator Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. I also rise in support of SJR 21 as the chair of the California Latino Legislative Caucus. Today, we not only remember the 1.5 million Armenians who perished under the Ottoman government of Turkey, but also a day to renounce genocide and those who deny its history. Currently, across our country, members, there are efforts underway to ignore the histories of our ethnic populations and deny the struggles and atrocities that they have overcome. Currently, as soon as last week, Mississippi's governor signed a law that under religious freedom, you can now discriminate an entire population. We see that in Arizona, current efforts to deny and erase the Mexican-American experience and Mexican-American studies in the Southwest region. As a state and a nation, it is important for us to remember our past so we can learn from it and create a better future. Our sympathies go out to all the survivors of the Armenian genocide, their children, their grandchildren, and especially the people of Armenian descent who are part of our great state.
Thank you, Senator Lara. Senator Block.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise as chair of the Legislative Jewish Caucus. We share with our Armenian brothers and sisters the profound sense of loss that comes with being a victim of senseless slaughter. Others have talked about what we can do in the future. All I can do is say that you have us as allies. We understand what you have gone through, we have gone through, and this just cannot happen again. We must never forget.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, I wish to thank Senator DeLeon for bringing this important moment of acknowledgement of one of the great genocides of all history. As a native of Fresno and having been raised with so many sons and daughters of those who lost their families, who fled the countries to come here to America, I guess I speak with empathy, and I've seen so many of the old family photos of the Armenian families of Fresno County. It is not pleasant, and those memories live on in their children. When we have these moments and occasions, we always cry out, never again. It seems to be of the human condition that such genocides have continued, are continuing even now. But it's all the more important that we recognize those instances of the past, such as the Armenian genocide, with the encouragement that we take a vow, each individually. We cannot change the world or history, but day by day, incrementally, for our individual examples, with the people and the human beings that we deal with, then we can some way, in a small way, make amends. And then always remember.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Further debate or discussion on this measure? Further debate or discussion on Senate Joint Resolution 61? Seeing none, Senator De Leon, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank my colleagues for their very eloquent comments, so that those in the gallery as well as our visitors here behind these columns, they have witnessed something that was quite incredible. We've had the leaders of the Latino Legislative Caucus, the Black Legislative Caucus, as well as the Jewish Legislative Caucus. We've had Republicans as well as Democrats, this whole legislative body coming together, a member of the Asia Pacific Islander Caucus, speak with one voice with regards to obviously our clear opposition to any genocide perpetrated by any particular group, ethnicity, or government on this planet. And in recognition also too of this being obviously the first genocide of the 20th century. Senator Mitchell, I think, in a very eloquent way articulated why beyond the symbolism and commemoration, in this case the 99th anniversary of the genocide, why this must be systematically inculcated in the minds and hearts of youths, regardless of who they are, regardless if you're Black, white, Asian American, Latino, Irish American, Jewish American. It's very important that all individuals know about all these types of atrocities. And the reason why I say that is because after this genocide that took 1.5 million lives away between 1915 and 1923, in 1939, when Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, without provocation from the Polish, when they decided to invade Poland, he was actually questioned as to, you're actually going to invade a nation that has not provoked you? And one of the comment from Adolf Hitler was, who would actually care if I invaded Poland, given the fact that 1.5 million Armenians had lost their lives at the hands of the Ottoman Empire, the first genocide, and no one in the entire world spoke up against it. That's proof positive that we can become revisionists of history, and that would give me the carte blanche to actually invade an unprovoked nation like Poland. And that's why it is important that every year that we rise up together in unison to speak against any type of atrocity of such a sort, and give a special recognition to Armenian American brothers and sisters who've made such a fine contribution to California. With that, Mr. President, I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Anderson. Aye. Bell. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Block. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Aye. Galgiani. Aye. Hancock. Aye. Hernandez. Hill. Aye. Hueso. Aye. Huff. Aye. Jackson. Aye. Knight. Aye. Lada. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Morrell. Aye. Nilsson. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Roth. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Torres. Aye. Vidak. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Aye. Wyland. Wyland, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Hernandez. Monning.
Ayes 35, noes 0. Resolution is, resolution is adopted. Coming now to privileges of the floor. Senator De Leon.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, thank you, members, for your indulgence. Privileges of the floor, obviously, I just want one resolution to honor and recognize the members of the Armenian National Committee who have come here. I present this resolution to the Armenian National Committee of America for their work to help the survivors of the genocide make a new home in the United States, for helping the Armenian American community flourish. The ANC serves as a liaison between the community and elected officials for nearly 500,000 Californians of Armenian descent. The state of California has been and always will be a place where those who are torn from their homelands can come to make a new home. The Armenian story is part of a greater California story, whether they're Dust Bowl refugees from Oklahoma, Arkansas, or Texas, or whether they're ethnic Chinese, Italians, Jewish, or Mexicans, or many other peoples who have sought refuge in our great state, or the great black migration from the southern states to California. We are committed to meet all people with open arms. Refugees came here and continue to come here because our earth is fertile, and because here in California, with hard work, patience, a seed will surely sprout. As we look into the future together, all people must rest assured their paths will be held in the sacred trust of our state. Perhaps the deniers believed that that after enough time had passed, Armenians would forget the demands of their surviving in their new homeland and would force them to forfeit their past. What the deniers surely did not anticipate is that just the opposite would occur. As the sons and daughters of the survivors established roots, especially here in California, became integrated into the culture, becoming Americans, their memory would grow even brighter and their demand for justice more resolute. I want to thank the Armenian National Committee for helping us remember. I want to present them with this resolution. Also, I want to introduce who will speak for a few moments, Mr. Ardi Kasakian, who is currently the city clerk from the city of Glendale, but more importantly, beyond that title, the voice of the Armenian National Committee. Mr. Kasaki.
Thank you, Senator De Leon. Mr. President and distinguished members of this esteemed body, today we mark an anniversary of a tragedy which has, through the efforts of an unrepentant perpetrator, been relegated to the shadows of historic obscurity. We gather 99 years after to observe the memory of the victims of one of the worst tragedies of the 20th century, the Armenian genocide, wherein the indigenous Christian Armenian population of Asia Minor and the Armenian plateau was systematically removed and slaughtered by the Ottoman Turkish government. Under the guise of the First World War, the Turkish government carried out its nationalist-driven policy of ethnic cleansing. As noted, 1.5 million lives were lost and many more displaced. This event, which has been well documented, has become the subject, unfortunately, of an active and aggressive and at times creative campaign of denial, which has stretched across almost a century, finding new and increasingly disturbing ways to silence the past. Despite the ongoing efforts by the government of Turkey and its allies to rewrite history to fit their own political agenda, this esteemed body, along with your colleagues in the Assembly, has repeatedly reaffirmed the historical record of this massacre, calling it what it is, a genocide of the Armenian people and the first modern genocide of the 20th century. The Armenian genocide would serve as a blueprint for other subsequent tragedies like the Holocaust, Cambodia's killing fields, and Rwanda, and unfortunate others. And today, we stand with you as you reaffirm your moral and just position by claiming never again. Armenians around the world recognize and are grateful for the assistance America gave to Armenia during and in the wake of the Armenian genocide. The efforts of thousands of American missionaries and humanitarians helped save what was left of a once proud and prosperous nation through such programs as a Near East Relief and through the hard work of so many great American leaders. Clara Barton, the founder of the American Red Cross, Secretary of State William Jennings Bryan, former President Teddy Roosevelt, and President Woodrow Wilson. These individuals and the thousands more who history will not remember by name spoke truth to power and gave until they could give no more. They welcomed a generation of orphans and tortured souls to find redemption on this nation's shores. I am the great-grandson of a genocide survivor. My great-grandfather, Hago Parsenyan, was a pharmacist, and in his early 20s, he was forced to leave his practice in the town of Ovajik, gather his young family, and march through the Syrian desert towards certain annihilation. But he survived, and here I am, 3 generations removed from this horrific ordeal, to address you as a proud American and resident of the great state of California. I, along with hundreds and thousands of Americans living in California who trace our roots back to Armenia, stand before you today to thank you for your principled stance. By addressing this issue today, you are not only honoring the memory of those we lost, but the survivors and their descendants who have found a new home here in our Golden State and have survived and have been revived and found a renewed sense of being, to be able to live, learn, and play. Pay this kindness forward, to serve our nation in every field and profession, from our armed forces to in our schools, as attorneys, as engineers, as entrepreneurs, as writers, as artists and doctors, alongside you as colleagues in the Senate and in the Assembly, all the way up to the highest office this state has, the state of governor, the office of governor. Your efforts make this possible, to give new life to an Armenian diaspora created by the genocide, but alive today through America's kindness. We are here today because of the courage that you have to speak truth to power, just like U.S. Ambassador to the Ottoman Empire, Henry Morgenthau, who used his position to protest the massacres and fought to save the lives of countless Armenians from certain death. Today, the Armenian nation needs you to find the courage of your predecessors once again and speak truth to power. As we sit in the comfort here in our state and in our state's capital, the perpetrators of the Armenian genocide and their collaborating deniers are hard at work to ensure that the Armenian nation continues to suffer. The town of Kesab, located in Syria, is a town predominantly of Armenian Christian families. It is along Syria's border with Turkey and dates back to the 11th century Armenian kingdom of Cilicia. It is the oldest continuously inhabited settlement still in existence in Western Armenia. But that may come to a tragic end soon if we do not speak truth to power. In recent weeks, armed forces have entered these settlements by crossing through the Turkish border and are carrying out the ethnic cleansing under the banner of a civil war against the civilian and unarmed population. We thank you for joining with your Armenian American constituents to memorialize our losses, and we ask that you join us in raising awareness about the innocent victims of the Syrian war, particularly the people of Kesab, of Aleppo, and other regions where Armenians have survived and existed for over a millennia. Our government sat idly once, as we relied on the actions of a few brave Americans to save what was left of Armenia. The sands of Syrian desert ran red with the blood of the innocent Armenians 99 years ago. Let's not allow those sands to run red with blood again today. We ask that you not allow history to repeat itself. Speak truth to power as you have always done. Take action. Use your authority that the public has vested in you to let everyone know that we stand with the oppressed and helpless. Honor those who we have lost by protecting the living and ensuring that when we say never again, that there is meaning behind these words. Thank you, and may God bless the memories of those who we have lost, and may God bless the wonderful state of California. Thank you.